Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to Planning for Retirement for Women Entrepreneurs. My name is Colin May, and I'm the Director of Programs at the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the Nasdaq Center is a nonprofit that's building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by improving inclusion, knowledge, and access in entrepreneurship. At the center, we celebrate all entrepreneurs every day. And in October, we're celebrating National Women's Small Business Month. So we hope you will join us in celebrating it too. As you will see in the chat in a moment, the Nasdaq Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So check out that link to access our resources. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Firstly, let us know where you're dialing in from in the chat. Many of you have said hello already, so let us know. Secondly, we're going to open up for live Q&A at the end of the event, so please submit those questions for our speakers and the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. We'll try our best to get to them all. Now, none of what we do here at the center could be possible without all the amazing support from our sponsors, including Nasdaq, Lehigh University, Bank of the West, Airbnb, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, Microsoft's Entrepreneurship for Positive Impact, BPM, and HubSpot for Startups. We are grateful and humbled by their contributions. Now, before we get started, I'm going to launch a quick poll to step back and take a temperature gauge on how you all are doing today. So I'm going to launch this quick poll. Let us know how you're feeling about your business right now. Can't believe how quickly this year has came across the line. Are you optimistic? Survival mode, feeling a little anxious? Let us know. We use this information to provide additional wellness programs for our entrepreneurs out there in the global ecosystem. All right, thank most of you for voting. I'm going to end this poll because I don't want to take too much away from our discussion today. Share these results. Looks like optimism is in the lead, followed by a little bit of survival mode and anxiety. Sorry, folks. Hopefully this conversation will help alleviate some of those sentiments. So without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our special guest, Paloma Vigil, SME Strategy for Women Entrepreneurs at Bank of the West. Paloma, welcome back.
Thank you, Colin, and thank you so much for having us on today. Happy Women's Small Business Month again, and thank you for joining the third of 4 events we have created to celebrate and inspire you on your entrepreneurial journey this month. My name is Paloma Vigil, and I work at Bank of the West. For those of you not familiar with Bank of the West, we are a full-service bank operating in 19 states. We offer everything from retail and consumer banking, business banking, commercial banking, as well as wealth management. At Bank of the West, we are a fundamentally different bank. Our leaders consider issues like gender equality, diversity, and our impact on the world when making decisions. And I have the privilege to lead our Women Entrepreneurs segment here at the bank, where I get to put together strategies and solutions to help women entrepreneurs like yourselves as they build and grow their businesses. Before we get to our main event, I wanted to share the amazing contributions and strides women entrepreneurs like you continue to make in the United States. First off, women own 42% of all businesses in the United States. Women of color account for 50% of all female business owners. Your businesses generate $1.9 trillion annually. It's just incredible. And you employ 9.4 million people. Those are truly incredible numbers. So thank you all for the contributions you are making to your communities. Today's topic is retirement planning for women entrepreneurs. I really wanted to include this topic in our month-long celebration since many of you have turned to entrepreneurship to gain financial independence in hopes of creating a better life for you, your family, and even future generations. However, as you build and grow your business, you can sometimes put off thinking about yourself in a number of ways. One of the most alarming statistics is that women entrepreneurs can wait up to 8 years to pay themselves. And all entrepreneurs are putting off thinking about the future. 34% of entrepreneurs have no retirement or even a plan to get one. 37% don't think they make enough profit to save for retirement. And 12% don't see a need for a plan. So today, I hope you can all take away the importance of investing in your future, how to start retirement planning, and how to evolve that plan as your business thrives. To have that conversation, I am so excited to be joined by my colleagues, Jane Warner and Anna Leone. Welcome to you both. I've had the pleasure of working with both of these women for a number of years. I think Anna almost over a decade. But could you share with the audience a little bit more about your career backgrounds? Jane, if you could start.
Sure. Thanks everybody for having us today. I've been here before and I think you are a great audience, certainly a great platform. I am the principal wealth strategist at Bank of the West, and I provide education and wealth planning strategies that are comprehensive, consistent among your personal, business, and charitable goals, and hopefully tax efficient. I've been in this role for 25 years and I have degrees in psychology, education, as well as law. You know, I was an entrepreneur at the beginning. I ran my own law practice before I jumped into what I do now for the last 20 years. So I understand, I get it. I get you don't have any money, but I'm also now getting older and realizing that I'm asking the same questions that everybody else is asking about retirement. So I am really glad to be here today with you, and I hope that we will be helpful.
Thank you, Jane. And Anna?
Greetings to everyone. Thank you for joining us and for your remarkable contributions, as Paloma mentioned. Truly exciting. I'm delighted to be with you. My name is Anna Leone, and I am a wealth management market leader here at Bank of the West. I have an undergraduate degree from California State University, Sacramento, as well as a certification from UC Berkeley in personal financial planning. I am FINRA Series 7, 66, and 24 supervisory license, and I've had the pleasure of expanding my career within Bank of the West for 18 years now, with the majority of my time spent in the private wealth management space. I've spent some time in personal and commercial credit analysis, and I continued on as a private client advisor, where I had the opportunity to work with private business owners like yourselves in support of their financial planning journey, which continues to be incredibly rewarding and my absolute favorite part of what I do every day. I have since transitioned my career into a leadership role where now I have the opportunity to work with a great team of advisors in support of bringing the best that our bank has to offer to our clients.
Thank you so much, Anna. So I hope you guys feel comfortable with these two wonderful women who have lots of advice and insights to share. So let's start where everyone on this phone has probably begun. Jane, I have just started my business and I don't have any extra money. How do I even start about thinking about retirement planning?
That's a great question, especially the part where you say, I don't have any extra money. I don't have any extra money, and I've been at this for 25 years. So I get that. But at the beginning, I know you're spending 1,000 hours a day or a week or however long you can building that business. And every dime you have is going into the business. It's going, maybe you're surviving on credit cards. You're not taking a salary, as Paloma said. So many of you don't. But you have to pay bills. You have to pay the rent. Sometimes you have to take some time for yourself. So what do? One of the things that I know people forget about, they just don't think about, is 20 years down the road. And so I want to make 2 points here. If you're a beginning, just starting out, or even 5 years in and still working really hard to make your company profitable, you need to think long term. You need to think 20 years down the road. And you need to think, where will I be? What will I need? And how can I get there? If you have a date to sale on the app that you're developing of 5 years, then your plan is a little different, but you still need to think 20 years down the road what's going to happen to you. And the second point I want to make is that you need to start right away. Let's just say that $3,000 is the only amount of money that you can squeeze out of everything else you need to do in a year. If you put that money into a deferred vehicle, savings vehicle, like a qualified plan or a non-qualified plan, some sort of deferral mechanism, at 6%, that would be $127,000 in 20 years. If you put $5,000 away, that would be $210,000 in 20 years. And I know I didn't take into account time value for money here, but a few $3,000 or a few $5,000 is going to end up being significant over time. And that's what you need to start doing. The way to do that is to sit down with a nice piece of software or a financial advisor or your CPA and run a cash flow that shows what your business is doing, what you need, how you're getting it, and how much you could potentially scrape out. If it's $1,000, it's $1,000. If it's three, it's three. You'd be surprised what you can find at the end of the day to put in the bank, to put into a plan. And then finally, what you need to do is figure out what plan you're going to put it in. So young businesses, entrepreneurs often think they can't do a qualified plan. They can. There are two in particular that small business owners typically put their money in. One is called a SEP IRA, a Simplified Employee Pension Individual Retirement Arrangement. This is really good for an employer that doesn't have any employees, or an employer that wants to contribute both to themselves and to their employees, because they can put 25% of their net earnings up to $61,000 into a plan every year. So I'm talking to beginning entrepreneurs, but maybe mid-level and maybe even more mature businesses could start a SEP IRA. Simple is another one. It's a savings incentive match plan. If you have less than 100 employees, and for that plan, you can put $14,000 as an employer and an employee. And the employees can actually contribute themselves. With a SEP IRA, the employer contributes for the employees. So those two are set up, simplified for starters in the entrepreneurial business world. A third option would be to create a traditional Roth. $6,000 a year, up to $6,000 a year can go into a Roth. If you keep it for 5 years, you can get all of your retirement money after that out tax-free, and you and your spouse could both have traditional Roth IRAs. So I think that's a good place to start.
Great. Thank you, Jane. Before we move off this topic, I know this is probably a question we may be getting, but are there any tools or tips for creating your personal cash flow or budget you might suggest? And that's for you or Anna.
Yes, if you're starting to consider this, I would definitely take the time to quantify your net income, right? It's important to understand what your monthly income is net of tax, and you want to have an accurate of a number as possible to start with. From here, you want to write out all of your expenses that you incur throughout the month. There will be some expenses that are once a quarter, maybe twice a year, and you can include that as you model out your annual budget. But I would take advantage of resources that you have at your fingertips now. For example, you're probably using QuickBooks already or Excel. They have templates you can use. You can also search a budgeting template online. That would be a good first step to go through, to start going through the motions of learning how to budget. And not only will this process provide you insights as to where your money is going and where we're really spending money, it gives you an idea of what you have in fixed and variable expenses and what is most important, especially when you're creating your savings roadmap. Once you have this set, your financial advisor is also a wonderful resource for you to take this process to the next level, where you will integrate your budget with your financial plan.
I think, Pluma, I think you can also go to the software side of it. So you have Quicken, you have Excel, you have Coda for your business, and Xledger. I think a lot of people are looking at using that for budgeting.
Great. Thank you both. And one thing I just want to add to this, we're talking about this from an early stage. Also starting to think about what expenses you might be running through your business for on the personal side. So it might be your insurance, your vehicles, travel. And I think we'll come back to this topic, but having that budget and keeping it is going to be important. So, Anna, I think we've done a really good job of helping our entrepreneurs understand how to build a budget and a cash flow. So what is the best pathway towards investing, particularly for those who may be new to investments or a novice in investing in the capital markets?
Absolutely. By putting together a financial plan or a budget or cash flow plan, you are empowering yourself to align your finances with your personal goals, your short and long-term objectives, and tying these critical priorities to your risk tolerance and time horizon towards and into retirement. So you want to stay true to what is important to you and not be influenced by the economic environment or rhetoric that we're constantly overwhelmed with in our daily lives, as we're experiencing now, right? Your financial plan or your retirement plan encompasses your journey and serves as your guide for you to arrive to your ultimate goal of what amount you and your family need in retirement. Putting a financial plan together also accounts for asset protection, which is super important, and protecting against catastrophic events. For example, long-term care medical needs. We have seen statistics stating that most retirees will need long-term care at some point in their lives. And furthermore, the majority of residents in nursing homes are typically women. So with that comes a big fear for us not having enough set aside in retirement or outliving our assets into retirement. Your financial plan will take into account market pullbacks, recessions, economic downturns, all of these ancillary issues, allowing us to take a disciplined approach when we drive toward our goals and take the emotions that come with economic shifts, what we see on the news, out of the equation. So with this said, you then take charge and make plan revisions when you have a material life change. When something important happens in your life, like a birth of a child, a marriage, you relocate, something that's important to you and impacts your life, this is when you're going to make your plan revisions. And by staying the course, you're going to avoid that reactive emotion-based decision-making, and this will help you in achieving your long-term savings goals.
I couldn't agree more, Anna. I personally have had to stop looking at my 401k given all the economic news right now, because it's just sometimes a little concerning. But as you're very correct, we need to stay the course, and the economics that are going on right now should not be impacting my choice to be investing. So Jane, as our entrepreneur's business continues to grow, they become more financially sound. What else can they consider in addition to qualified plans to save for retirement?
Well, I think first of all, if you haven't had a qualified plan at all in your company, now might be a good time to actually take a look at a 401k or a 457 if you're a nonprofit, which is a little bit more of a complicated plan, requires a little bit more administration and a little bit more money to set up. But if you're finally making a profit and you have good people, might be a good place to start. If you have a qualified plan and you're maxing them out, and perhaps you have had a chance to put an investment plan in place or a full financial plan in place, you might want to consider non-qualified deferred compensation. It's an interesting secondary way to save taxes. It has an upside, it has a downside. So anything that you put into a non-qualified deferred compensation plan, which usually is used for your highest earning employees and yourself as an owner. Remember, you have two hats. You have the employee hat and the owner hat. And sometimes you can do two things with one particular vehicle. So in this case, when you set up a non-qualified deferred compensation plan, anything that you defer into that plan comes off the top of your income for that year, and you don't pay taxes on it. Of course, you're going to pay taxes later down the line, for sure, aren't we all? So it's a great additional savings vehicle. The upside is the company benefits too from the fact that they're keeping their people on board, and anybody that leaves doesn't necessarily take the deferred comp with them, especially if there's a match that goes with it, or if it's involuntary deferred comp, yeah, they take it with them. In the downside, though, with non-qualified deferred comp is that all of that money remains on the books. It remains on the books for purposes of lawsuits, bankruptcy, and any other thing that might wipe out the company's money. So in a sense, it's a risk to have a deferred compensation plan, but it's certainly worth it if you feel that your company is stable. But I want to mention one other strategy here that I think can also work really well once you've started to turn a profit, or even well before that, actually, depending on how you set it up. And that is to use life insurance, believe it or not, as a deferred savings vehicle. So early on in your careers, I'm sure you wanted nothing more than to protect your family if anything happened to you during the development of the business. And most people will buy term insurance. They'll protect their family for loss of income, health, things like that, that might be needed if the entrepreneur herself died. And that gives you a death benefit. That's great. But in this case, since you now have something to work with in your budget, life insurance could also be set up with a cash value, not term insurance, but a cash value type of insurance. And that cash value can literally be used as a tax deferred savings plan. So here's how it works. You're going to need insurance anyway. So the cash value insurance, you pay the premium into the cash value insurance policy. It builds cash value over 10 to 15 years. And I would say that any entrepreneur up to age 50 or 55 could do this. You need to have 10 or 15 years to put the funds into the cash value in order for them to grow sufficiently to make it worth it, economically speaking. Tax efficiency, that's what I do. And then at the end of the 10 or 15 year period, that cash value has accumulated based on the same way that an investment portfolio would accumulate. And you are able to take tax-free distributions from that policy up to basis, and then you're able to take tax-free distributions through loans from that policy for almost the entire cash value that's in that policy. You can use that for your retirement, but you could also use it for anything else that you might want to use it for, or if you don't need it for retirement, grandkids' educations. You might need it for health. You could travel the world. It's your money to do what you want with. It's not marked for anything in particular, but it's a great addition to retirement plan.
Thanks, Jane. You briefly touched on it in your comment, but I want to come back to the topic because it was really well received in our last event. Insurance is a protection strategy. And you gave this amazing formula, which I think was really helpful for people when they're thinking about term insurance now, especially since I'm sure we have a lot of mothers on the phone who maybe are the income generator of the family.
Yes, when you can't afford to go this cash value route because it's more expensive, obviously, you still need to insure your family against your death. And we have a wheel that we work with, and it's the risks that young families or people with young children, let's say, usually take. Income replacement's really critical if you die. Health of your family is critical during your life and when you die. You're always concerned also with your retirement and your children's education. So within that wheel, we have income replacement. And I always say that you should take the age of your youngest child. How many years will it be before that youngest child is out of college? So let's take a 2-year-old child and 20 years until they're out of college. Then Anna mentioned this, you get your net spendable cash flow. It's net spendable income, net after tax for a year. And you multiply that number by 20 years. That's how much term insurance you need in order for your family to have the lifestyle that you've created for them or want to create for them as you're building this business over time. That's the formula.
Thank you so much, Jane. Anna, Jane just did such a great job in explaining the additional vehicles to save more, but are there other strategies you've seen clients deploy?
Yes, absolutely. And Jane, I loved everything about you. I love everything you just said. It's so timely. The term diversification can mean different things to each of us. And in particular for entrepreneurs who may be in the early stages of developing their business. Typically, when we refer to diversification, we talk about investment asset allocation. And now, as Jane mentioned, risk mitigation, both absolutely important. However, I would weave in here the importance of strategically using leverage or credit and commingling your personal and business assets. It could be that at the beginning of your business venture, you may need to supplement your business liquidity by way of personal capital injections. Maybe you borrow from your home through a home equity line of credit, or maybe you use your credit cards to fund a business project. I highly encourage you to connect with your banker or your financial advisor to understand what resources are available to you through financing that you can obtain directly to your business, through your business. So the bank may request your personal guarantee, which is common, but by being proactive about how you use leverage directly through your business, you can position both your business to accomplish a project you may have been contemplating. Maybe you want to grow your inventory position. Perhaps you want to supplement your working capital. Whatever your objective may be, you can position yourself and your business, to be empowered to make those decisions. You can also obtain a small business loan through your bank with programs backed by the U.S. government via a Small Business Administration loan. Through the SBA program, you can consider different loan options, like micro-lending, for example, for smaller sized loans. You can also look at loans in support of working capital needs or even equipment purchases. Some clients also use SBA lending for large purchases like buying real estate. So as you appropriately mix the use of credit with the purpose that the funds are intended for, you'll realize how using credit through your business can empower you to be purposeful and strategic with your own savings plan. And you can do so in a way that works for you and your family.
Thanks, Anna. And, owner occupied real estate can be another income stream for you as a business owner. So it's another way to have money coming in. I'd also just make the comment, it's so common for us to see people start with commingling. So don't think that you're doing it wrong by starting that way. It's very common. But the sooner you can separate your business and personal assets and start to build your business credit, it can be hugely important for you to continue to grow the business. And we just did a great event on it on the 4th. So go check it out. It's on the Nasdaq YouTube channel. So as the business matures, your business and family orbits will begin to overlap. It's like you've got two sets of family. Family dynamics is always something to be mindful of. And for the mothers, the aunts, and the sisters that have joined us today, what should they be thinking about? Anna, could you start with an early stage to growing business owner perspective?
Yeah, it can be challenging, right? As you're starting your business to put yourself first. But as we've mentioned today, setting a budget and aligning your actions with your short, mid, and long-term goals will position you for success. It is easy to be swayed by the stress of everyday life and not to focus on our own savings and retirement planning, but it's important not to neglect yourself. Start your savings plan today. Think of a reasonable target. It could be a percentage, it could be a dollar amount. You want to make sure that whatever your objectives are, that you're achievable and taking those considerations into your other financial obligations, and that it's something that you can repeat year over year. Paloma, you mentioned family dynamics, and in terms of family dynamics, there's a few considerations that I would share with us today. For example, if you have young children and education planning is important, discuss establishing ways of funding your child's education through an education savings account, such as a 529 plan with your financial advisor. There may be some tax benefits that you can take advantage of for your child's education expenses by using a 529 plan or maybe a Coverdell savings account. If you have adult-age children who are materially involved in your business, a consideration would be to lay out your estate plans and your business succession documents early. It's never too soon to get your planning directives in place. Trust me, I see this every day. Transitioning on, if you have aging parents, there could be varying issues keeping you up at night. Reach out for help from your financial advisor to support you in how to best talk to your parents about finances. This can be a tricky conversation, right? Or any financial related concerns. Your financial advisor can serve as a neutral party and provide you comprehensive advice and coordinate these conversations with you.
That sandwich generation that's dealing with both, it just breaks my heart. But Jane, let's talk about more mature companies and their owners. What do they need to consider?
Let's start with the idea that a mature company, you made it, congratulations. But now you have a whole set of other issues that come up that affect your retirement. Let's say you do not have a 401k in the company, you never put one in place, that's okay. But that means that the business is your retirement. And so we have to figure out, or you have to figure out, how to retire on the business. So many families want a successful business to remain in the family for a very long time. And that's totally understandable. But if you give your business to family, you don't get any income from it. So I go right back to the first thing I said when I started, which is cash flow. And Anna also mentioned this. You need to figure out, and Paloma mentioned this too, when she said decoupling business and personal assets. You have to figure out what the business has been paying for all these years, which could be your automobiles, could be your health insurance, probably was a few vacations, I mean, quote unquote, business trips. All of these things you charged to the company. Now you have to figure out what you're actually going to need when they're not being charged to the company and you're paying for them. plus all of your other regular expenses. So you need to do a cash flow. You need to run through what you actually need in retirement. And then you have to figure out how to get it. So typically what happens is if you've got enough in a 401k already, great. If you had a retirement plan the whole time, you're in good shape. Maybe you have deferred comp too, but let's assume you didn't. Now we have to figure out a strategy which would allow you to either sell the company to family so that you can keep getting some profits from it, or third party sale. And I'm not going to talk about third party sale today so much because that's money that goes in the bank. You live off that and you leave to your children what you want to leave to them. But when a family is going to stay in the business, key factor here is that they're still family. And you're still going to have all the family dynamics that Anna just brought up, and then some. You are the matriarch of that family right now. As long as you're around, as long as you're running that business, everybody is going to toe the line. You can keep threatening them with, you're out of the will, things like that. But when you're not there, there's a really good chance that things will fall apart. And sometimes they fall apart because family can't get along about the way the business should be run. Sometimes family can't get along with management if management is non-family. So I'm going to suggest 3 things that you do in order for your retirement to go smoothly and for the legacy, obviously, after that to go on. One is, and you start this early, if you're going to sell to family, about a year or 2 years or maybe 5 years before you plan to retire, start the process of selling to family. Do it slowly, see how they react to the gaining of power, even though it's minority interest and they don't have any control, and you can, kick them out if you want to. See how they react, and you will see leaders emerge in your own family. So you're selling to the family. You need to have what we call a family succession plan. There are going to be family members that will sit on boards. There could be a family committee chaired by another family member. There could be family members that just want to be heard. How would they be heard? And that would be relative to the business and whatever you leave them personally. Then you want to set up your traditional business succession plan. Most of the business succession plans have an emergency death plan in them. If I die, here's what happens. But it's really important if family is going to be part of the future of the business. And lastly, if you have management that has made your business what it is, as successful as it is today, you certainly don't want management to start thinking that they're being undermined by family members when you're not there to call the shots. So you need to put a management succession plan in place so they feel secure and they know what their role is, how much control they have on day-to-day decisions, operational type of control. And when a family member steps in, they know exactly what that family member's role is going to be and how it's going to work. And I think if you can do that and start early, you'll have kind of a roadmap so that your retirement, when you do start to sell to family, or you do actually get out of the business and retire, is going to go much more smoothly than many.
Jane and I had the privilege of meeting with a winery that's on their 4th generation of family members involved. And we will tell you, there was 2 brothers who actually stopped talking to each other. Their kids finally got them to come back both before they deceased. But now they are in their 4th generation and it's running very smoothly. Took some time, but it can be done. And I want to just call out, that might sound like a lot. It might seem very aspirational, but getting those right documents in place can really help make that transition smooth. And if you continue to update them as you need to, I think is also really important. So thank you, Jane. So I think we've done a really good job about talking about building that retirement nest egg. But let's talk about the exit. And probably one of the hottest topics when you're talking about the exit is a business valuation. Many entrepreneurs don't take into account their business value as part of their personal estate. Anna, what does this mean for entrepreneurs and how can we proactively approach the topic of valuation and the implications that we should consider with this potential estate tax consideration?
Wow, what a dynamic topic, business valuation. Arriving at the value of your company and what someone is willing to pay for it is such a personal and emotional process for us to go through. Something that you identify as a positive to your business, a buyer could consider a risk to the business. For example, let's say you have a large contract with a well-known retailer or a supplier. You think, hey, this is great. This is a positive attribute. A buyer comes in and says, this is actually a risk. What happens if this one large retailer or supplier exits their contract with you? From the perspective of the buyer, because this is a risk, and with risk comes potential reduction in the value of your company, that may impact what they're willing to pay you for it, right? So it's important for us to think about integrating into your team of advisors a business valuation strategist. This person will help provide considerations to accelerate the value of your business while you're still in the trenches, in it today, and also help in educating on exit strategies that are available. Do you want to sell the company to your employees through a leveraged ESOP? How about selling the company, as Jane mentioned, to a family member, or selling outright? Or perhaps you want to IPO. Talk to your financial advisor, talk to your CPA, talk to your estate planning attorney, and prepare for what the best options are for you and your family. And as Paloma mentioned, keep in mind the value of your business is included in your overall estate. So you want to be proactive with both your estate plans and how they align with your goals and what your legacy means to you.
Thanks, Anna. And Jane, I'm sure you have something to add to this topic.
I do. I always want to add to this topic. A lot of business owners, when they get to this point and they decide to sell to a third party, or they decide to sell to family, and they know they need to get a valuation, but let's just take third party for a minute. You want to get the highest amount you can get, highest market value you can get on your appraisal, your valuation. But before you sell the company, you might want to be doing your estate planning, which Anna mentioned. Estate planning sometimes means making gifts of shares of the company to trusts that will then collect part of the proceeds once the company sells. And a lot of people don't do that because they are afraid that if there are two valuations out there in the marketplace, a fair market valuation and a gift or discounted valuation, that one will affect the other. It won't. We have so many cases where families got 40% discount on the value of their company, moved shares out to trust for the benefit of their kids, keeping what they needed for retirement, of course, and then selling the company. They receive a certain amount of proceeds and the trust receive the rest of the proceeds for the fair market valuation in the industry as they receive from their process. So I just wanted to make it clear, you don't have to worry about getting a discounted valuation, and even in the same year that you get a fair market valuation, one will not hurt the other.
Great. And Jane, before we move off this topic, could you just quickly go through kind of the three major exit strategy options: intrafamily, intercompany, and going to a third party, and kind of like the subset? You don't need to go super detailed, but I just think that the group would benefit from having those defined.
Okay, so let's start with intrafamily. I just talked a lot about family dynamics, screwing that all up, but if you're going to do it, I think that there are several ways to do it. One is to use trusts. The other is to use notes. Make sure that there is a legal tender involved in the situation. I like to use a strategy called an intentionally defective grant or trust, and all that is a way to sell your company, to take back payments, and stay responsible for the income taxes, so you reduce your estate at the same time. ESOP. I'm selling to your employees, employee stock option plan. Many companies out there are already ESOPs. I remember I worked for another bank, and our retirement plan contained a tremendous amount of company stock because it was an ESOP. An ESOP is where you want to get out, you need money to retire, your employees, it becomes their retirement plan. It's stock of the company. So they buy out your 100% ownership, maybe over time, and you have your money to retire. Now, it's more complicated than that, and you have to qualify to be an ESOP. But if you're an S Corp or a C Corp, you can do an ESOP. If you're an LLC, you cannot. You may be able to transform, but your financial advisors will have companies that do that expertly. And what was the third one you asked me about?
Going to a third party.
Well, we just talked about valuation, which is absolutely, absolutely key. And the other part of that is make sure that you do your pre-sale planning, which is whatever you want for a legacy to your family. You need to get it in place before the investment bankers come in and start the process of finding you a buyer. I also wanted to talk just for a second about mid-level and smaller level companies going out and finding their own buyer through a broker, a mid-level broker. Sometimes the brokers are really good and sometimes they're not. So make sure that you always get a second opinion. And the reason is a broker will find a buyer, but they're getting paid on both ends of that transaction. So they have a little bit of bias both ways. They're trying to help you, but they're also trying to help the buyer. And I sometimes don't think you get the best value.
Thanks for that, Jane. The last question before we turn it over to our attendee Q&A, and I think it's really, really topical right now because so many people are dealing with employee staffing challenges. But finding and keeping great employees is often enhanced by having an employee retirement plan at a company. The plan can also be for the owner, but just as often, entrepreneurs have reasons for why they do not set them up. They're too expensive, too complicated, employees would rather not have one. But with many states, including the state of California, changing the rules around them, it's a great time to understand them better. What are the great reasons to have an employee retirement plan that can also benefit the owner, Jane?
Well, I think, first of all, it keeps people employed. You know, they like the fact that there's a savings plan, especially where there's a match, or if they're not even putting money in the savings plan, where the employer is putting money in the savings plan for them, keeps them on board. And I mentioned a little bit about that earlier. Taxes, obviously, there's deductions for the company, and there's deferrals or deductions from your income tax on a personal basis for money that you put in these plans. But one of the things that in 2020 happened was the Secure Act. Now, for small companies, one of the things Paloma mentioned was that it's not just difficult, but it's time consuming and a little bit expensive to set up some of these and then administer them. But the Secure Act cuts the expenses of setting up qualified plans in your company. It was especially put in for small businesses so they could get retirement plans in place. And what it does is it provides tax credits, $5,000 in tax credits for 3 years in a row. And that should give you the money to set up the plan and administer it while you're getting going. It also gives you $500 a year tax credits for any contributions that you're making as an employer or any increases in contributions that you make as an employer for your employees. It also gives you a chance to participate in what's called a multiple employer plan. Or a pooled employer plan. They're called MEPs and PEPs. And this really significantly lowers the administration costs, and it's way less time consuming for you. So you might want to look into that.
Thank you, Jane. I feel like you're the queen of acronyms today. So we're going to transition into live Q&A. So please put your questions in the Q&A section so we can get to all of them. One of the questions that we actually saw in the pre-submitted, which I thought was important to address, and I'm going to give this one to Anna. How many retirement accounts should I have? Should I have a lot in a bunch of different places? What would you advise in that situation, Anna?
Yeah, Jane spoke about a variety of different tax advantaged accounts that we could take advantage of. I would recommend that you select the one or two that are going to most benefit or optimize your retirement savings, right? It's about, quality, not quantity. You want to try to max out your contribution to your 401k, try to max out your annualized contributions to whatever plan you may have. And I think it's more about dedication to your plan, right? As opposed to a multitude of accounts.
Great, thank you. Jane, you covered the different types of retirement accounts. Could we go back to those? And if you could just briefly explain them. I think we covered the SEP IRA, the simple, a traditional Roth, as well as a Roth or yeah.
Roth, yeah. Okay, so a simple is a retirement plan for a company with less than 100 employees. It's where the employer and the employees can both contribute their own part of their own salary, and the maximum that you can contribute in a year is $14,000. The SEP IRA, the I'm not going to go through what it is again. SEP IRA is a long, but anyway, it's only the employer that can contribute. So if an employer wants to contribute $300 a month to their employees, then a SEP IRA will work for them. And the employer can also contribute, and percentage-wise, 25% of net earnings can be contributed into that plan. So if you're, think of it this way, if you're an entrepreneur with no employees, you want to set up a SEP IRA. And as you get successful, you're the only employee. So you can contribute 25% of your net earnings up to $61,000 a year. That's the way to save. If you have employees, you might want to look at a simple, because you want to help your employees, but you don't want to have to do 25% of net earnings if you're earning a lot of money, because the percentage carries over for every employee. On the traditional IRA, this is something that I would say it as a supplement, but it also could be a standalone. A lot of people think that getting the tax-free withdrawals from the Roth IRA make it valuable to have a Roth IRA right from the start. And if you can put $6,000 a year in it, well, then you're looking at, what did I say? 5,000 was 210,000 at 6%. But all of that comes back out 20 years later, or even 6 years later, because you only have to keep it for 5 years, tax-free. And so I think that is another arm, once you've contributed whatever you can contribute to the more protected, simple, and SEP. If you're not going to put in a full-fledged 401k, 403b, 457, depending on those, those larger plans.
Great. Thank you, Jane. Anna, if my cash flow is low and my revenue is slow, or potentially maybe I have seasonal income, how do I plan to save for retirement?
Absolutely. That's a common concern. So, I don't want anyone to feel alone in this. If your business has cyclicality or seasonality, I would do my best to contribute the maximum when, times are good. You have a couple of years where things are going great, you're able to contribute, establish your retirement nest egg, properly asset allocate the holdings within that retirement account. And then let's say something happens, or you experience some seasonality, or we have a pandemic, then you don't feel so badly. You know that you're being proactive when times are good, and when times are maybe a little tighter, then you have that flexibility to not feel that pressure to continue to contribute. I will say that continuity and consistency here is key. It's kind of like working out. I don't want to go to the gym, but once I go and I kind of get into the habit, it becomes routinely, then it becomes enjoyable, right? I kind of compare saving to retirement to that kind of muscle memory practice. And I'll share with you, when I was fresh out of college in my early 20s, the last thing I wanted to do was open a 401k account. Hey, I'm in my early 20s. What do I need a retirement account for? But to this day, I thank the team that surrounded me, in the office, who really pushed me, to get started. It's never too early and it's never too late. So I hope that kind of encourages you to take the first step.
Very, very much so. And I was in that same boat, Anna. And I did pause, but I quickly got on track and made my match and then went up above that. So it's a great practice to have. Jane, can you again repeat that protection formula? I know that was the question we got as a follow-up.
Yes. Exactly the same thing happened the last time. Write down the age of your youngest child. And then how many years will it be until that child is out of college or out of education? I'm going to say college. So at age 22, let's say. And then that number of years becomes the static number that we're going to use for years that you will need to take care of your family. Then you take your net spendable income, what you spent that provided food, clothing, shelter, entertainment, vacations, automobiles, whatever it was that your family spent that money on in a year. Bills in general, I guess, is the way to put it. And that number multiplied by the number of years from the time your youngest child gets out of college, multiplied by your net spendable income, that is the amount, if you will, of at least term insurance that you should that you should have on your life. So if it's 20 years before your age 2-year-old gets out of college and you earn $200,000 a year, that's $4 million, $2 million. Multiply that, $4 million. That's what it would take to raise the child in the lifestyle that you've created without even an inflationary factor, but that should do it.
Great. Thank you, Jane. So I hope, Erica, we got that answered for you. And I think this is a great question we got. How do you balance saving for retirement, but also education plans for your kids? Is there any strategy to prioritize, or do you kind of just need to decide which one if you don't have enough money for both, which is maybe more coming first, I think is maybe the way to think about that.
Sure. So I'll share with this group. I had a baby last year. First thing I did was open his 529 plan. Now I'm not, pouring savings into this account, although the maximum allotment that you could place into a savings account, 529 plan, is quite generous. So you can really optimize your children's savings account, and then you can even transfer those accounts if your child decides not to go to college. But I would say prioritize, right? Again, back to priority, back to consistency. Whatever methodology you use with your current cash flow management, your allotment to child savings planning and to your retirement planning, I would definitely, put that in place. You can model out by using present value, future value calculations in terms of cost, right? So if you think your child's going to attend Cal and the current cost of university, future value that, and then it kind of gives you an inclination of what college will cost. So you can kind of work backwards that way if that helps you budget for college savings. I would say maximize your retirement contributions, and then what you have in terms of a surplus, allocate that to your children's college savings plans.
Ploma, can I make one comment here?
Yep, absolutely.
You can also do, if you have young children and you have 15 years, you can do double duty with the insurance policy that I mentioned earlier, and you will have a savings plan, and you can use it for education if you want to.
Yeah. Thanks, Jane. We're going to come back to insurance. And this is a great question, and I'm going to read it all out. The woman entrepreneur is single. She's got no chance of having children. Well, doubtful on getting married. Is insurance still a great investment vehicle when you're a single person?
That's a great question. And it's very personal. I certainly would say liability insurance is going to be there, because you don't want to live and have a lawsuit and then lose everything and be, without anything. But as far as personal insurance, it depends on whether or not your legacy will be different than a family legacy would be. So your legacy might be community. Your legacy might be charitable. Your legacy could be a lot of things. And in that vein, insurance can be very helpful, because no matter what you do in your life, you can enjoy every dime you have, and you will still have something to leave behind in your name. So I think in that sense, it could be useful.
Great. Thank you, Jane.
Could I add to that, Paloma?
Of course, Anna.
Sorry. I would also consider, as we mentioned earlier in the conversation, long-term healthcare is a very concerning and hot, prevalent topic amongst women. So I would also look at protection strategies for yourself, who's going to care for you and how we're going to fund that. You can put that in place today, right? And be proactive around leveraging the insurance industry with your healthcare today. So just another token that I would share.
Thank you. And thank you to the attendee who asked that question. I think it's deeply personal, but it's a big one. Okay, well, we are going to wrap this up. And before I turn it back over to Colin, I wanted to invite Jane and Anna to just share, what is that one thing you want our attendees to walk away with? So Jane, I will start with you.
I will start where I started. I think that you have to think long-term with retirement planning. And I think you have to start as early as you can with as little as you have, and over time, make your plans work for you.
Thank you, Jane. And Anna?
I would say organize your thoughts. You know, what is an absolute need? What's a nice to have? And what's a wish, right, that you can work towards in retirement? I would put together your attainable and realistic budget and financial plan. And then consistency, right? Consistency is key.
Thank you. And I would just add to this, I know retirement might seem like a far off dream state from where you are right now, especially if you're in the early stages of starting your company, but take the time to invest in yourself. You went on this entrepreneurial journey because you wanted to gain more financial independence or financial freedom. And so set yourself up for success once you get farther on this journey. Build that cash flow and figure out what you can save for yourself. And I think that can be hugely impactful the sooner you start. So thank you, ladies. This has been wonderful. Always a pleasure to chat with you. And Colin, I'll turn it back to you.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Paloma, Jane, and Anna, so much for taking the time to speak to the community, share your valuable insights, setting everyone up for long-term success and setting such a great overview of this complicated but somewhat easy process. On behalf of everyone in attendance and everyone on our team, thank you so much. For those of you who are still on, we would love for you to join us for some of our upcoming webinars, many of them in the areas that we're maybe are creating some of that survival mode and anxiety. So check those out. Also join Bank of the West on the event that Paloma mentioned on October 26th for its Women Entrepreneur Series on marketing with a purpose. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We look forward to welcoming you all back online soon. Have a good one, everyone.